The old old happy couple. Very fitting. So we have a very set idea, I think, of what a sports movie is supposed to look and feel like. And this movie, I feel like, really pushes against that in a very interesting way. I wonder, can you talk about, were you influenced by other sports movies? Were you trying to deliberately push against them? Or were you thinking of this as its own total separate piece?
Yeah, well, I think that it was more like a problem for me to find out that, okay, I'm actually doing a boxing movie. So it was not something that I didn't want to do a sport film, but to be honest, the reason why, like my personal point of view for this whole story and why I got related to this thing is, I think that is kind of a allegory of filmmaking. When you are making your first feature film, I had already like quite big expectations because my student film won in Cannes, the Cinefondos, in the student section. And so that's part of the prize, is that they will automatically invite your first feature film there. And so when
Your prize, right?
Yeah. And so when I tried to write that first feature film, it felt just like nothing is enough to fulfill those expectations. But then I found this story, and I felt like, okay, that's actually a nice story, nice love story, but it's also I can deal those same emotions that I was going through, but not telling about a filmmaker, but a guy who's boxing. So for me, it was not a sport film in a way, but of course when we started to make it, then I watched lots of sport films and also like also boxing films a lot, and yeah, well, it was more like a problem. So I really tried to not to go like they usually go, to do something different.
There's this very interesting contrast between the violence and the hypermasculinity of boxing and then Ollie's personality, because he is so quiet and withdrawn and he doesn't want the spotlight. Was that a theme that you were trying to pursue in this?
Yeah, it's and that was also the reason why it's like a bit different kind of boxing film. That it's because it's based on Olli's character. It's more like a portrait out of him than a biopic. So if you're making a film out of a different kind of a boxer, then it needs to be a bit different kind of a boxing film. And yeah, that was what I was interested about Olli was that he was very good in what he did and he loved his thing, but still there was a big contradiction between him and the sport that he was doing. Like everybody, he was in a field that everybody wanted him to be something else that he is not. So yeah, that I felt it's interesting. They were like they wanted to have this hero, but he didn't want to be that kind of a hero that they wanted.
The look of the film is so fascinating because we don't see too many black and white movies shot on film these days. And what did your choice of visual style for the film allow you to do with the story?
Well, maybe our visual references for this film were more like early 60s documentaries and like Penn Baker and that kind of like cinema verite kind of stuff. And the choice of black and white, we just chose it like a few months before the shootings. We were not supposed to do it in black and white, and we had almost the whole financing in place. And then we were doing film tests and we tried lots of different kind of film stocks. And then when we took the colors out of this 160mm color reversal stock, we realized that okay, it needs to be black and white. it really felt that, okay, now it's taking us to the 60s and we don't have to underline the decade. We don't have to be worried about that does it feel like you are in the 60s? Do we have to remind people all the time, like you are just, it has this certain kind of texture in the film. Really feels as old.
I'd love to open it up to audience questions if anyone has any. Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Do you feel that Ollie's character accepted his position as a professional or as more of the boxer he was before this match? And then maybe, how do you, because you mentioned it, the story being kind of an allegory to your relationship as a filmmaker, making bigger films, and how does that, maybe that character relate to you as a filmmaker?
Well, I think Olli's problem with this fight was that it suddenly the sport that he was so familiar with and that he was very good and he loved it, suddenly it changed. Like when you are building this kind of big spectacular, you need a lot of money and then you have to make a show out of it to get the money, because the sponsors need to be seen and that's so. Yeah, even though he continued after this fight was something, or the surroundings of this fight, like he says, the circus around it was something that he didn't like at all. And he was an amateur boxer in a way that he liked to box in a very technically and not to knock out. He actually refused to knock out the opponents, which is from a viewpoint, or like if you go to see a boxing match, that's what you want to see. So he was, quite a bad show guy. And what I related to this, I felt also like stepping, like when doing short films and doing things like with your friends, even though some of them were financed. It's totally different issue to make a feature film with a few countries involved and lots of people involved. And I was afraid at some moment that I will lose the joy or the playfulness that I actually like doing films. That's like why I started to make films. It was something that I felt that was comforting. And then when it changes and when you lose your joy of filmmaking, there's like nothing left. And that was something I with this film I also really tried to remind myself, like you need to enjoy of filmmaking, otherwise you need to love it, or otherwise it's just too hard.
When you get to come to festivals like this?
Yeah, this is the easy part. Now that is ready. Even though of course it's a bit scary always to show the film.
Do you have any other questions?
Yes, why do you choose that title? It's like a reference for love the woman he loved, or why?
Yeah, the title is actually something that Olli said when we first met. I met him I knew him because we are from the same town, and he's not like very famous in Finland anymore. I mean, people have forgot, but people who still remember 60s and 70s, they might know him. But in my own little hometown, he's still considered as a big star. And I met him in a theater premiere. And I heard him talking with these other guys about this fight. And that was something that everybody thought that, okay, that must have been the worst fight that you had in your career, like the worst day ever. And he said like, no, it was actually the happiest day of my life. And that was like the first meeting with him, he said this thing, and I think that was very funny way to put it. And then I started to think, okay, why did he consider this day to be the happiest? And it's of course the rings is one reason, but I think it's also that he was pulled into this world that he didn't feel comfortable, and then by losing it, the fight, even though he didn't want to lose, but still losing the fight sets him free in a way of this. He doesn't need to be that hero that they wanted him to be.
Yes, good.
Have you studied documentary filmmaking before you started this movie? But a lot of the movie was not done in a really documentary style. It was sort of a little of both, I guess.
Yeah, well, I did study like fiction directing, but I also did some studies from documentary lessons, and that's what I like to do, to just combine these two. And with this, it was easier with my previous films, because then if you're using contemporary, if you're doing like film set in contemporary world, then you can use our environment. You have to, there's lots of things that you can get, like lots of documentary values that you can get out of our environment. But in this, when we have to build everything, I think that was one of the biggest challenges that we had, like how to still keep it as a that it feels like real, that these things are just happening. We are not manipulating these scenes. So yeah, I enjoy documentaries. I think I'm more interested about the world than the films. So
I think we have time for one more question. This one.
Could you talk a little bit about the art design to create the feeling of the 1960s? The production design.
Production design.
Yeah.
Well, we had huge amount of locations. We shot this film in 32 days, and we were almost every day in different locations. And we did a huge location scouting, because we wanted to have this location so that we can shot like 360 around, so we can move the camera very freely. And basically, I was talking to everybody that, yeah, this is this kind of a very intimate portrait thing. And my production designer said to me, like after the film was done, that yeah, maybe it was like an intimate portrait film for you, but it was not that to us. Like we had to build like the whole world. So, but basically, there's just one studio scene, is the funfair, the mermaid hall thing, and all the others are locations that we found, and then we of course changed some things. The apartment is my apartment, the Elsa's apartment.
What's happened to Olli now, since then?
He continued boxing till the 70s, and he did some very nice fights. He won European Championship in '64, and Davey Moore, actually, I think that's also one thing that why I think Olli said that was the happiest day of his life, because Davey Moore died just a few months after this in another fight. So he maybe also thought that, okay, that could have been his thing. So he was much luckier.
But does he still live in your town? Or is it?
No, he's not living in that town anymore. He's living near Helsinki, but with Raja. He has a very severe Alzheimer's, so he's very dependent nowadays, even more than back then of Raja's.
I think that's all the time we have, unfortunately. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Juho.